A constant pressure builds when the mind tries to control everything, shaping outcomes, forcing direction, and holding tightly to how life should unfold. It may feel like effort is necessary, but over time that effort creates tension that slowly drains your energy. The more you try to force clarity, force results, and force life into a fixed path, the more resistance you feel within. This resistance does not come from life itself, but from the mind refusing to allow things to move naturally. In Buddhist understanding, peace is not created by controlling every moment, but by learning when to release that control. When you stop forcing and begin to let life flow, something shifts. The mind becomes lighter, movement feels easier, and what once required struggle begins to align without pressure. Lesson 1. Loosen your grip on how things should be. A large part of inner tension comes from a quiet expectation the mind holds about how life is supposed to unfold. Without noticing, you create a picture of how things should look, how people should act, how situations should develop, how outcomes should appear. This picture feels reasonable, even necessary, but the more tightly you hold on to it, the more pressure you create within yourself. When reality does not match this expectation, resistance begins. You feel frustration, disappointment, or unease, not because something is truly wrong, but because it is not aligning with the image your mind has created. The moment becomes heavy, not due to what is happening, but due to what you believe should be happening instead. In Buddhism, this is understood as attachment to expectation. The mind clings to a certain way things must be, and in doing so, it loses its ability to move freely with what is actually present. Life continues to change, but the mind tries to hold it still. This creates conflict, because life does not remain fixed for anyone. Holding on to how things should be can appear in many forms. It may be the expectation that a plan must go a certain way, that people must behave in a certain manner, or that your path must look a certain way by a certain time. When these expectations are not met, the mind reacts, often creating more tension than the situation itself. What makes this pattern difficult is that it feels justified. The mind believes it is simply trying to create order or achieve clarity, but in reality, it is narrowing your experience. It is placing conditions on your peace, making it dependent on everything aligning perfectly with your expectations. Loosening your grip does not mean you stop having direction or intention. It means you stop attaching your inner state to a fixed outcome. You allow plans to exist, but you do not depend on them completely. You allow people to be as they are, without needing them to fit into a certain idea. You allow situations to unfold, without forcing them into a specific shape. This can feel uncertain. The mind is used to holding on to structure, so releasing that tight grip may feel like losing control. But if you remain with the moment, you begin to see that not everything needs to be controlled to move forward. Life continues, even without your constant direction. As you loosen your grip, something begins to ease. The tension that came from trying to match reality to expectations starts to soften. You are no longer comparing every moment to an imagined version of how it should be. Instead, you begin to see what is actually here. This brings clarity. When you are not focused on how things should be, you are able to respond to how they are. Your actions become more grounded because they are based on reality rather than expectation. This reduces unnecessary struggle because you are no longer resisting what is already present. There is also a sense of openness that develops. Without rigid expectations, you are more flexible in how you move through situations. You are able to adjust without feeling disturbed. What once felt like a problem becomes something you can work with more easily. This can be practiced by noticing when your mind creates a fixed image of how something should go. When things begin to feel tense, ask yourself if that tension is coming from the situation itself or from your expectation of it. Often you will see that it is the expectation creating the pressure. When you become aware of this, gently release the need for things to be a certain way. Allow the moment to unfold without forcing it. This does not remove your ability to act. It allows your actions to come from clarity rather than resistance. This changes how you experience life. The constant comparison between reality and expectation begins to fade. You are no longer measuring every moment against a fixed standard. This reduces frustration and allows your mind to remain more steady. A mind that holds tightly to how things should be becomes tense and easily disturbed, but a mind that can loosen that grip becomes calm and adaptable. It moves with life instead of against it. Peace does not come from making everything match your expectations. It comes from releasing the need for everything to match them. When you loosen your grip, you remove a major source of inner pressure. Your mind becomes lighter. You are able to move through life with less resistance, more clarity, and a quiet sense of ease, because you are no longer holding on to an idea of how things must be, but allowing them to unfold as they are. Lesson 2. Stop turning everything into a struggle. Much of the heaviness you feel in life does not come from the situations themselves, but from the way the mind turns them into something difficult. A simple moment becomes complicated, a small task becomes overwhelming, and a passing challenge becomes something that feels larger than it is. This happens quietly, through the habit of adding resistance, pressure, and unnecessary effort to what is already present. The mind often believes that everything requires force. It approaches situations as if they must be controlled, solved immediately, or pushed into a certain direction. This creates a constant sense of strain. Even things that could move naturally begin to feel like they require effort, because the mind is always tightening around them. In Buddhism, this is understood as unnecessary resistance. Life has its own movement, its own pace. Some things require action, but many things unfold without needing to be forced. When the mind treats everything as a struggle, it loses its ability to recognize this difference. It applies the same pressure to all situations, creating tension where there could have been ease. Turning everything into a struggle often begins with small reactions. A delay feels like a problem. A mistake feels like failure. A moment of uncertainty feels like something that must be fixed immediately. Instead of allowing these moments to pass or settle, the mind engages with them strongly, adding thoughts, judgments, and pressure. This engagement creates a chain. One thought leads to another, one reaction leads to more reactions, and soon the mind is caught in a cycle of effort that was not necessary. What could have remained simple becomes heavy, not because of what happened, but because of how it was approached. Stopping this pattern begins with awareness. You start to notice when the mind is adding pressure to a situation. You observe the urge to force, to control, or to make something happen quickly. Instead of following that urge, you pause. You allow the moment to be as it is, without immediately trying to change it. This may feel unfamiliar. The mind is used to acting quickly, so allowing things to be without force may feel like inaction. But if you remain present, you begin to see that not every situation needs to be pushed. Some things resolve on their own when they are not being resisted. This does not mean you stop taking action where it is needed. It means your actions become clearer and more precise. You act when there is a real need, not because the mind feels restless. This reduces unnecessary effort and allows your energy to be used more effectively. There is also a sense of ease that comes with this practice. When you stop turning everything into a struggle, your mind becomes lighter. You are no longer carrying the weight of constant pressure. You are able to move through tasks and situations with more calmness because you are not adding extra tension to them. This can be practiced by noticing how you approach small moments. When something does not go as planned, observe your immediate reaction. Do you try to force a solution? Do you create pressure to fix it quickly? Instead of following that pattern, take a moment to allow the situation to settle. Often you will see that the urgency was created by the mind, not by the situation itself. When that urgency fades, your response becomes more balanced. You are able to act without unnecessary strain, and this changes the entire experience. This reduces the habit of struggle. The mind becomes more relaxed because it is no longer treating everything as a problem. It learns that not every moment requires effort, and not every situation needs to be controlled. A mind that turns everything into a struggle becomes tired and unsettled. It is constantly pushing, constantly reacting, and rarely at rest. But a mind that allows things to move without force becomes steady and calm. It does what is needed and lets go of what is not. Life does not become easier because everything changes. It becomes easier because you stop adding unnecessary difficulty to it. When you release the habit of turning everything into a struggle, your experience becomes more fluid, more balanced, and more at ease. You begin to move through life with less resistance, more clarity, and a quiet sense of calm that does not depend on everything being perfect. Lesson 3. Let movement happen without constant direction. The mind often believes that everything must be guided, planned, and directed at all times. It feels a need to decide every step, control every outcome, and shape every moment into a clear path. This constant need for direction creates pressure, because the mind is always trying to manage what is not fully within its control. In Buddhism, there is an understanding that life moves on its own. Not everything requires your constant input. Some things unfold naturally when they are not being forced into a specific direction, but when the mind tries to guide every detail, it becomes tense. It does not trust the natural movement of life, so it tries to replace it with control. This creates a subtle form of exhaustion. The mind is always thinking ahead, always planning, always trying to make sure everything goes a certain way. Even in moments where nothing needs to be decided, it continues to search for direction. This constant engagement prevents the mind from resting. Letting movement happen without constant direction means allowing space for things to unfold without interference. It means recognizing that not every moment needs to be shaped or controlled. You still act when necessary, but you are not trying to manage everything at once. This may feel uncertain. The mind is used to being in control, so releasing that control can feel like something is missing. There may be a sense that if you are not directing everything, things will not move forward. But if you observe carefully, you will see that many things continue to move even without your constant involvement. Conversations flow without being planned. Situations resolve without being forced. Opportunities appear without being controlled. Life has its own movement, and when you stop interfering with it, that movement becomes more visible. This does not mean you become passive. It means your actions become more natural. Instead of forcing direction at every moment, you respond when it is clear. You allow the situation to show you what is needed, rather than trying to decide everything in advance. There is also a sense of ease that comes with this approach. When you are not constantly directing, your mind becomes lighter. You are no longer carrying the weight of managing every detail. You are able to move with what is happening, rather than trying to shape it into something else. This can be practiced by noticing when the mind is trying to control every step. When you feel the urge to overplan or overdirect, pause. Ask yourself if direction is truly needed in that moment, or if the situation can unfold on its own. Often you will see that the need for control is coming from discomfort with uncertainty. The mind wants to feel secure, so it tries to create direction where it is not required. When you allow that uncertainty to exist, without trying to remove it immediately, the pressure begins to reduce. This builds trust. Not a blind trust, but a quiet understanding that life does not need to be controlled at every moment to move forward. You begin to see that clarity often appears when you are not forcing it. A mind that constantly directs becomes rigid and tense. It struggles to adapt because it is attached to a fixed path. But a mind that allows movement becomes flexible and calm. It adjusts naturally because it is not holding on to a single direction. Letting movement happen does not mean losing control. It means releasing unnecessary control. You act where your action matters, and you allow the rest to unfold without pressure. And in that balance, your mind becomes more steady. There is less urgency, less tension, and more clarity. You move with life, not by controlling every step, but by being present enough to respond when it truly matters. And as this becomes natural, you begin to experience a different kind of ease, one where life is not something you have to constantly direct, but something you can move through with awareness, trust, and quiet stability. Lesson 4. Release the fear of things not working out. A quiet fear often sits beneath the mind's need to control, fear that things may not go as planned. It appears as worry about the future, concern about outcomes, or a constant need to make sure everything works out a certain way. This fear may not always be obvious, but it influences how you think, how you act, and how you experience each moment. When the mind holds on to this fear, it begins to move differently. It tries to predict every possibility, avoid every mistake, and secure every outcome before it happens. It believes that by thinking more, planning more, or controlling more, it can prevent things from going wrong. But in doing so, it creates tension because it is trying to control something that is not fully within its reach. In Buddhism, suffering often arises from attachment to outcomes. The mind becomes fixed on a specific result, and anything that threatens that result creates fear. This fear does not come from the future itself. It comes from the mind's attachment to how the future must unfold. The reality is that not everything will go exactly as planned. Situations change, circumstances shift, and outcomes are influenced by many factors beyond your control. When the mind refuses to accept this, it remains in a constant state of unease. It is always preparing, always adjusting, always trying to ensure that things turn out a certain way. This creates a heavy inner experience. Even in moments where nothing is wrong, the mind is occupied with what might go wrong. It is not present because it is focused on protecting a future that has not yet arrived. This prevents the mind from resting because it is always engaged in managing uncertainty. Releasing the fear of things not working out does not mean you stop caring about outcomes. It means you stop attaching your inner stability to them. You still act with intention, you still move toward your goals, but you are not holding on to a fixed result as something that must happen for you to feel at ease. This can feel uncomfortable. The mind is used to relying on certainty, so letting go of that need may create a sense of vulnerability. There may be thoughts that question whether things will be okay, whether the path you are on is correct, or whether your efforts will lead to the result you want. Trying to remove these thoughts immediately, you begin to observe them. You see that they are expressions of fear, not facts. They arise from the mind's attempt to control the future. When you recognize this, you create distance between yourself and the fear. As you remain with this awareness, the intensity of the fear begins to soften. You begin to see that the need for certainty is what is creating the pressure. When that need is reduced, the mind becomes lighter. You are no longer carrying the weight of trying to secure an outcome that cannot be fully controlled. There is also a sense of trust that develops, not a belief that everything will go perfectly, but an understanding that you can handle what comes. This shifts your focus from controlling the future to being present with the moment. You act where action is needed, and you allow the rest to unfold. This can be practiced by noticing when your mind begins to worry about outcomes. When you feel tension about whether something will work out, pause. Bring your attention back to what you can do in the present moment. Focus on your actions, rather than the result you are trying to secure. This reduces the habit of fear-based thinking. The mind becomes less concerned with controlling every outcome and more focused on engaging with what is here. This creates a sense of calm because your inner state is no longer tied to uncertainty. It is important to understand that fear itself is not the problem. It is a natural response of the mind. The problem arises when you hold on to it, believe it completely, and allow it to guide your actions. When you see it clearly without attachment, it loses its power. A mind that is driven by fear becomes tense and restless. It is always trying to protect itself from what might happen. But a mind that releases this fear becomes steady. It moves forward without the constant need for certainty. Letting life flow requires releasing the need to control outcomes. When you are no longer afraid of things not working out, you remove a major source of resistance. You allow life to move without forcing it into a fixed result. Your mind becomes calmer. You are able to act with clarity without being weighed down by fear. You are able to move forward, even when the path is not fully clear, because your peace is no longer dependent on how things turn out. It comes from your ability to remain steady, regardless of what happens. Lesson 5. Trust the process you cannot see. The mind seeks clarity. It wants to know where things are going, how they will unfold, and when results will appear. When this clarity is not available, a quiet discomfort begins. The mind starts to question, to doubt, and to search for answers that are not yet visible. It feels unsettled, not because something is wrong, but because it cannot see the full picture. In Buddhism, there is an understanding that not everything can be known in advance. Life unfolds in ways that are not always clear from the present moment. Many processes are not visible while they are happening. Growth, change, and alignment often take place quietly, without immediate signs. But the mind struggles with this because it prefers certainty over the unknown. When the mind cannot see progress, it begins to assume that nothing is happening. It looks for proof, for visible results, for confirmation that things are moving in the right direction. When that confirmation is not found, it creates doubt. This doubt leads to restlessness, and restlessness leads to the urge to interfere, to force movement, to change direction, or to abandon what has not yet shown results. This is where unnecessary pressure begins. The mind tries to make things happen quickly, not because it is needed, but because it cannot tolerate the absence of visible progress. It confuses stillness with stagnation and quiet development with lack of movement. But in reality, many important changes happen beneath the surface, without immediate expression. Trusting the process means allowing these unseen movements to take place without constant interference. It means understanding that not everything needs to be visible for it to be real. Just because you cannot see the result does not mean there is no movement. Just because clarity is not immediate does not mean direction is lost. This can feel difficult. The mind is used to measuring progress through visible outcomes. It wants reassurance, something it can hold on to. When that reassurance is not available, it feels uncertain. But if you remain present with that uncertainty, without reacting to it, you begin to notice something different. You begin to see that the need for constant confirmation is what creates the tension. When that need is reduced, the mind becomes more at ease. You are no longer trying to prove that things are working. You are simply allowing them to unfold. This does not mean you stop taking action. It means your actions are no longer driven by doubt or urgency. You continue with clarity and consistency, without needing immediate results to justify your effort. This creates a more stable way of moving forward. There is also a sense of patience that develops. Not a forced waiting, but a natural understanding that things take time. When you trust the process, you are not constantly checking or adjusting out of fear. You allow the movement to continue without interruption. This can be practiced by noticing when your mind is searching for immediate proof. When you feel the urge to see results quickly or to confirm that things are working, pause. Recognize that this urge is coming from discomfort with the unknown. Instead of reacting to it, allow it to pass. Bring your attention back to what you are doing in the present. Focus on the action itself, not on the result you are trying to see. This reduces the pressure to constantly measure progress and allows your mind to remain steady. This changes your relationship with uncertainty. It no longer feels like something that needs to be fixed. It becomes something you can remain within without discomfort. This creates a deeper sense of calm because your mind is no longer dependent on constant clarity. It is important to understand that trust is not blind belief. It is a quiet acceptance that not everything can be known at once. It is the willingness to continue without needing to see the full path ahead. A mind that needs constant visibility becomes restless and impatient. But a mind that can remain steady without it becomes calm and grounded. It moves forward with clarity, even when the outcome is not yet visible. Trusting the process you cannot see is about releasing the need to control every step. It is about allowing life to unfold in its own way without forcing it to reveal everything immediately. And in that trust, your mind becomes lighter. The pressure to know, to see, and to confirm begins to fade. What remains is a quiet confidence, one that does not depend on immediate results, but on the understanding that movement is happening even when it is not yet visible. And with that understanding, you are able to continue without tension, without doubt, and without the need to force anything at all. Lesson 6. Let go of mental urgency. A quiet pressure often runs beneath the surface of the mind, the feeling that everything must happen quickly, decisions must be made now, answers must be clear now, progress must be visible now. This sense of urgency may seem like motivation, but most of the time it creates tension, not clarity. It pushes the mind to move faster than necessary, turning simple moments into something heavy. Mental urgency does not come from life itself. It comes from the mind's discomfort with uncertainty and delay. When something is not immediately clear, the mind tries to resolve it as quickly as possible. When results are not visible, it tries to force movement. It believes that speed will bring relief, but instead it creates more pressure. In Buddhism, the mind becomes disturbed when it resists the natural pace of things. Not everything unfolds instantly. Some processes take time, some answers appear gradually, and some situations resolve without being rushed. When the mind tries to speed up what is not meant to move quickly, it creates friction. This friction is felt as stress, impatience, and restlessness. Mental urgency often appears in subtle ways. It may be the feeling that you are falling behind, even when there is no real measure. It may be the need to respond immediately, even when a response is not required. It may be the pressure to solve everything at once, even when it is not possible. These patterns create a constant sense of movement, where the mind is always trying to reach something that is just ahead. This makes it difficult to be present. Instead of experiencing the moment as it is, the mind is always focused on what comes next. It is not at rest because it is always moving toward a future point that it believes will bring relief. But when that point is reached, another appears and the cycle continues. Letting go of mental urgency means releasing this constant push. It means recognizing that not everything needs to be done immediately, and not every thought needs to be resolved at once. You begin to move with a more natural pace, one that is not driven by pressure. This may feel uncomfortable. The mind is used to urgency, so slowing down can feel like something is being neglected. There may be a sense that if you do not act quickly, something will be lost. But if you observe carefully, you will see that this feeling is not always connected to reality. It is a habit of the mind, not a reflection of what is actually required. When you pause and allow the moment to unfold without rushing, the pressure begins to reduce. You are able to see more clearly what truly needs attention and what can wait. This clarity is not available when the mind is in a state of urgency, because everything feels equally important. There is also a sense of calm that begins to develop. When you are not rushing internally, your thoughts slow down, your actions become more deliberate. You are no longer reacting out of pressure, but responding with awareness. This creates a more stable inner state, where you are not constantly pushed by the need to move faster. This can be practiced by noticing when urgency arises. When you feel the need to act quickly, pause for a moment. Ask yourself if immediate action is truly required, or if it is simply the mind creating pressure. Often, you will find that there is more space than you thought. Allow yourself to move at a steady pace. Complete one thing at a time, without trying to rush through everything. When thoughts begin to speed up, bring your attention back to your breath or your surroundings. This helps the mind return to a calmer state. This reduces the habit of urgency. The mind becomes more patient because it is no longer driven by the need for immediate results. You are able to remain steady, even when things are not moving as quickly as you expected. It is important to understand that letting go of urgency does not mean becoming slow or inactive. It means removing unnecessary pressure. You still act when action is needed, but you do not carry the weight of constant rushing. A mind that is driven by urgency becomes tense and unsettled. It is always pushing forward, rarely at rest. But a mind that moves without urgency becomes calm and clear. It follows the natural pace of life, rather than trying to control it. Letting life flow requires releasing the need to move faster than necessary. When you let go of mental urgency, you remove a major source of inattention. You allow your mind to settle, your actions to become more balanced, and your experience to become more at ease. You begin to move differently, not driven by pressure, but guided by clarity, not rushing toward the future, but fully present in the moment. Everything begins to unfold with a sense of natural rhythm, without force, without tension, and without the need to hurry at all. Lesson 7. Move with life, not against it. Inner struggle comes from moving in a direction that is not aligned with what is actually happening. The mind creates a path, holds onto it, and then tries to force everything to match that path. When life does not follow it, resistance appears. This resistance is not created by life itself, but by the effort to make it something it is not. Life is constantly changing. Situations evolve, people act in ways you cannot predict, and circumstances move beyond your control. When the mind refuses to acknowledge this movement, it begins to push against it. It tries to correct, adjust, and force outcomes into a fixed shape. This creates tension, because you are working against something that is already in motion. In Buddhism, peace comes from understanding the nature of change and allowing yourself to move with it. This does not mean you stop acting or lose direction. It means your actions are aligned with what is present, not with an idea that is no longer real. You respond to life as it is, rather than resisting it based on how you think it should be. Moving against life often feels like constant effort. You push situations to change faster, you hold on to what is already shifting, and you resist outcomes that are not matching your expectations. This creates a feeling of being stuck, even when movement is happening. The more you push, the more resistance you feel. When you begin to move with life, this effort reduces. You are no longer trying to control every change. You observe what is happening and adjust your actions accordingly. This creates a smoother experience because you are not fighting against the natural flow of events. This may feel unfamiliar. The mind is used to leading, so following the movement of life may feel uncertain. There may be a sense that you are losing control or direction, but if you stay present, you begin to see that you are not losing control. You are releasing unnecessary control. There is a difference between acting with awareness and forcing outcomes. When you act with awareness, you respond to what is real. When you force outcomes, you act based on what you want to be real. The first creates clarity, the second creates tension. As you begin to move with life, you notice that not everything requires effort. Some things resolve when they are allowed to unfold. Some paths become clearer when you stop trying to define them too early. This does not remove challenges, but it changes how you experience them. They become part of the movement, not something you are fighting against. There is also a sense of adaptability that develops. When you are not fixed on a single outcome, you are able to adjust more easily. You are not disturbed by change because you are not resisting it. This creates a stable inner state, even when external conditions are shifting. This can be practiced by noticing when you are pushing against a situation. When you feel tension, ask yourself if you are trying to force something that is not ready to move in that direction. Instead of pushing harder, allow the moment to show you what is possible. This does not mean you give up effort. It means your effort becomes more aligned. You act where your action matters, and you allow the rest to unfold. This reduces unnecessary struggle and creates a more balanced way of moving forward. This changes your relationship with life. You are no longer in constant conflict with what is happening. You are able to move through situations with more ease because you are not resisting them. Your mind becomes calmer because it is not constantly trying to control what cannot be controlled. A mind that moves against life becomes tired and frustrated. It is always pushing, always resisting, and rarely at rest. But a mind that moves with life becomes steady and clear. It flows with change instead of fighting it. Letting life flow is not about becoming passive. It is about understanding where effort is needed and where it is not. It is about aligning yourself with the natural movement of life, rather than working against it. And when this becomes natural, your experience changes. There is less tension, less pressure, and more clarity. You are able to move forward without forcing every step, because you are no longer trying to control life. You are moving with it, allowing it to unfold, and responding with awareness. Everything begins to feel lighter, more natural, and more at ease, because you are no longer in conflict with the way life is moving. Letting life flow is not about doing nothing. It is about no longer moving with unnecessary force. When the mind stops tightening around every outcome, stops rushing every moment, and stops trying to shape everything into a fixed direction, a different kind of experience begins to unfold. You start to notice that not everything requires your control, and not every situation needs your effort. As that realization settles, your actions become lighter, your thoughts become quieter, and your inner state becomes steady in a way that does not depend on constant adjustment. This is where real ease appears, not because life has changed, but because your relationship with it has. And when that shift becomes natural, things begin to align without pressure, without struggle, and without the need to force anything at all.